Hello everybody, it's Sierra, the Artsy Badger. Today we're going to be doing a challenge that I've seen popping up in my recommended feed, which is artists drawing their original characters in other artists' styles. I have noticed that most people use YouTube artists specifically, and I did use mostly YouTubers, but I just set up a little sheet on my iPad with a bunch of photo references to help me focus in on each artist's style, and then got to drawing. So I wanted to start off with drawing my Badger character in my own style, so that's what I have going here first. So I do hop around a bit and do the sketching first, and then I'll actually zone in and color each one all at once. But I just wanted to make sure that I gave my line work enough time to dry for the ones that I did do the line work first. So with the last artist that I'm emulating slash referencing, I think her name is Sibline. I hope that I'm pronouncing that correctly. She is the one that is not a YouTuber, and she also doesn't often draw animals as a center point of her drawing. So I thought it would be fun to try and translate her character design elements into the actual animal. Anyway, so although I do mostly traditional work on this channel, I almost always draw the Badger digitally, so it was kind of weird. But I just did a flat color the same way that I do digitally, but with my Copic markers, and no shading, nothing like that. I might end up changing that at some point, but for now this is kind of the style I have them going for, very block color cartoonish. For the Casey drawing, I whipped out my kneaded eraser, trying to emulate everything she does. And, you know, I am not the biggest fan of kneaded erasers. I don't really know how to use them in the context of a pencil drawing. I used them a lot when I used to do charcoal drawings, and I find them to be really useful there. But anyway, back to the Casey Golden drawing. As you guys know, she is a huge inspiration for me as far as creating a YouTube channel and just being more confident in being an artist. And so it was really fun to put my Badger in her style. It was a lot harder than I expected. Also, it definitely reminded me that I am not the most talented watercolor artist. I had a really hard time making colors dark enough and knowing that they were going to be dark enough before I put them down, but then I didn't want to have too much layering going on, so it was complicated. And then I had no idea how difficult it would be to get her sort of dry brush effect for some of the shading that she does. She does a lot of really cell block shading looks, like you see me doing on the legs, but then she also does these almost dry brush looking shadows on like the face, and they're usually in a different color than the rest of the shading. So I was really surprised at how difficult that was. And then, of course, I had to do the iconic Casey hair or fur. She often does it on the legs of her characters, but she also does it on her original characters when they are fuzzy, things like that. All kinds of fuzzy animals she likes to put the hair. Another thing that I feel like I didn't do that well, it just looks kind of awkward, but maybe that's just because I'm not used to it. Now, this one is probably my worst one. This is Bailey J, and I had a couple references open for her. I feel like her style has been changing a lot lately too, but she is a Copic marker user, but she uses them in a really blended way, and I had a really tough time figuring out how she uses her markers, because the way that I get my markers to look so blended is by using them together right away, and maybe it's the kind of paper I was using, but it seemed to just pick up a lot of the ink instead of actually moving it around. Who knows? And then I tried to make a background that kind of is reminiscent of her style, because I didn't like it just sitting there on a white background. And so I took inspiration from her like Supergirl that she made that one time. I think it's her as a superhero. So I used that as inspiration and did some like stars and just some pastel teals and pinks and, you know, just trying to get her aesthetic as best as I can. I am truly sorry that I kind of butchered your style. I just have a lot to learn about how you use Copic markers, Bailey, I guess. Next is Lee Alexin. I think that's how you pronounce her last name. She has definitely been a huge inspiration for me, especially recently. I talk about her a lot with my reference to wanting to limit my color palette more and become more proficient in color theory, that kind of stuff. I feel like she has a really good handle on it. And this piece was so much fun. I had a great time just being really loose with my watercolors, because from watching her sketchbook session videos, I can tell that she does a quick sketch, but then she really kind of lets the watercolor do what it wants. And then she comes back in later with colored pencils to kind of establish the actual shapes that she wants in there, not worrying too much about detail with her water brushes, except for some of her plants are very delicate too, so it's hard to explain, but I really, really like it a lot, and I had a lot of fun doing this one, even though I don't think I did her style justice whatsoever. I really enjoyed feeling a sort of freedom with the looseness of my marks and things. That was really enjoyable. I do need some new colored pencils because a few of these just broke because the lead is broken on the inside, which is a bummer, but that's okay. The mixed media texture thing is also something that I've always loved about her work. I do think that my paper is not textured enough to really take advantage of that, so I would love to try this on actual watercolor paper that has a little bit more texture, because I think that would portray her style a little bit better than what I accomplished. But like I said, had a wonderful time doing this, feel like I learned a lot, and yeah, I think it turned out okay. I've also noticed that if things are too dark in the watercolor, specifically with her tiger drawings that I've seen her do, she will go back in with some white gouache, I believe, to lighten up the areas that the watercolor did bleed into that she didn't want it to be there. And that worked surprisingly well. So that was a fun little trick to learn, I guess. I don't even know if you can call it a trick though. It is kind of common sense. But anyway, now we're finally on Sublines. I am so sorry if I'm butchering your name, but please just know that I really admire your work. And this was another one that was really fun. I never would have thought to use these colors in combination, but I was really trying to pull as much inspiration from my reference images as I could. And she uses a lot of really warm, rusty tones with these light powder blues. And it took me a very long time to finally decide which part of the badger I was going to make blue versus rust colored. I did play around with the idea of making the whole badger blue, because she definitely has some pieces that are exclusively in that sort of warm rust family, and then others that are exclusively in that cool pale blue, and then also dark blue family. But I decided I wanted to go with kind of a mixture of the two, and although I was very nervous through the whole thing, I think it looks really good. I also chose her more sparkle star motif instead of her flower motif. She has both, and sometimes she uses them in combination, but I don't know why I didn't choose to put some flowers in here. I do think it could have been really nice to have some flowers in this piece, but I just decided to go with the sparkle effect because that was also what most of my reference images were showing. I did use my burnt red color fine liner for everything except for the eyes, because that was kind of what I observed from just looking at her art on Instagram. It does seem like she uses a different color fine liner that is not black I could be wrong. I haven't seen any of her sort of process videos, if she has those. Like I said, she is the only one of these 4 that does not have a YouTube channel, at least to my knowledge. Now I'm just labeling everybody with the appropriate Instagram handles. I really love the way this spread looks. It's so fun to see my little badger in so many different styles, and it really kind of allowed me to find more appreciation for my own style in a weird way. I also feel like I learned so much by doing this. I learned a lot about colors and looseness with watercolor versus very controlled watercolor. It was really fun. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all next week. If any of you are still here, I just want to apologize for my inconsistency with posting on time lately. I do think I'm going to change my upload schedule of sorts from being strictly Saturday at 9 a.m. to more of a it will be up sometime on the weekend. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.